What is poppin', everybody? Welcome back to yet another Kendrick Lamar review over here during Kendrick Lamar Review Week, K.Dot in Review Week. We're reviewing yet another Kendrick Lamar project until we've reviewed every single studio project he's released. I know some of these things are like today we're doing an EP, so it's not technically an album, and I know we did Overly Dedicated, which is also more of an EP than an LP, but whatever, it's on Spotify, I'm counting it. So we're talking about Untitled Unmastered today, and I'm very excited to talk about this one because we've been doing a lot of very long reviews. If you saw the Good Kid, Mad City review, you know that one was almost an hour and a half, and then the To Pimp a Butterfly review was almost 2 hours. So I am thankful to talk about Untitled Unmastered because I will have substantially less to say about this album, which is fine. It's still a good album, but we'll go ahead and get into it in a second here. So if you want to see any of those older reviews, you can click through the channel here, and you'll be able to see those pretty recently. Those came out in the prior days before this, and yeah, without further ado, we'll do all the other housekeeping stuff at the end. But let's go ahead and crack into Untitled Unmastered. So just a little bit of context here, just little anecdotes relating to the overall album rather than the track by track breakdowns that we will do in a second. Pre-notes. I remember hearing snippets of this thing on LeBron James's Instagram story back in 2016 before it came out. This album had a really weird rollout. It genuinely seemed like this album wasn't planned to come out, but somehow LeBron got a hold of these tracks and was bumping them in his Instagram stories. And I remember it was going around on Reddit, because here's the thing, I'm not a sports guy. I do not follow LeBron James, so I found out about this by it blowing up on Reddit and people being like, what's this Kendrick song he has access to, like what the hell's going on? And then it kind of went viral, and LeBron apparently was really egging Kenny on to release these tracks, and so sure enough, he released them. And the album was actually on the servers for Spotify like a day or two before it actually was announced. And then we could still see it in the back end for several days before it was released. It was a very strange rollout. It was one of those things where you could see the album, you could access it if you had the link, but you couldn't play it. So we just saw this Untitled Unmastered thing with all these Untitled 1, Untitled 2 things, thinking, oh, they're going to fill that in with, some titles later on. And they never did, but, that's fine. That's just what this album is. So no hard feelings there. And honestly, my hype for To Pimp a Butterfly was at its peak right around the time that this project was being talked about. So back when it first came out, I loved this album so much more. I was like fucking enamored with it. I thought it was so great. But now that I'm judging it more by itself, because it is its own product, it is its own set of tracks, I'm not as high on it as I was back in the day. I don't think it's bad. Once again, I do not think it's bad at all. But compared to what I just heard right beforehand, it isn't quite on that level. But we'll talk about that here as we finally get to the track by track breakdowns. Starting with Untitled 1. I really like this opening. This opening is very it's like super creepy, like the opening intro. So here I'm just gonna give some context. So this song is about the end of the world. This is about the rapture, the biblical rapture, where it's talking about these horns that are playing in the background and such. It's definitely playing off of that. The only other piece of entertainment that I like enough to have in my brain is This Is the End. And that's the Seth Rogen movie, the comedy with all the, ensemble cast, blah, 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 blah. If you've seen it, it's a great movie. I like it a lot. But it's crazy. There's a lot of crazy shit that goes on. And I'm going to say literally, well, we've been recording for like 4 minutes, so I don't know how long. I know YouTube doesn't like it if you say something buck wild in the first couple of minutes of a video. But I'm going to talk about this scene. There's a scene. I don't want to talk about it too much because it's kind of fucked up. But there's a scene in that movie where, because it's the rapture and God took all the good people away, Earth is just hell, effectively. So there's demons and shit running around hell. And apparently a demon sneaks in to the mansion that all the characters are in and has its way with Jonah Hill in his sleep. Without getting too graphic about it. And that scene was played for laughs, which is, kind of weird in retrospect, to say the least. But that action kind of reminds me of the opening of this song, like the whole like deep seductive tone of like, baby, put it over there like a little lamb, like that. It has a similar type of vibe to me, where it feels kind of predatory. It feels alluring in a way that you should know is bad, rather than an actual sex appeal way. So it just feels like the male version of Lucifer, where on To Pimp a Butterfly, the song For Sale, that was a female version of Lucifer. This is the male version, where it's a little bit more obvious how sinister it is, because it's kind of the layer of sheen on top that kind of distract you from the sinisterness. That layer is so much thinner with this intro here. But then the song kicks off properly, and then just the beat is super weird and distorted. The energy of Kendrick is super not aggressive / frantic, I'd say, on here. He's kind of giving a vibe of chaos. It's the rapture, it's the end times, shit's going crazy, people are freaking out. Turns out Christianity was real. All these religions people had, and that one was the one that ended up being right. It's fucking crazy. So I think it actively conveys the chaos that a day like this would be, despite people thinking of this like, oh, this is the day where we're rewarded for our good traits. It's kind of talking, because it's so chaotic, because people aren't quite sure what the qualifications are to get into heaven, because we have this book and everything, but people have made so many different interpretations of this book, on top of the fact that this book has been rewritten and reinterpreted so many different ways, where you got the King James version, but that's one version of the Bible. There's all these other versions of the Bible that exist, and people have been passing things down orally for so many years. We don't know what the actual original words were at this point, because it's been telephoned throughout history so long. So when it gets right down to it, if this day was to ever come, he has this one line here, Kendrick has this one line here where he says, some of us never did wrong but still went to hell. It's kind of like, yo, what are the requirements? If we did everything right and lived a good life and we're still trapped down here, what the fuck could we have done? And so I read into that when I read into that line, I think, not only history changing what the book says, but also are the requirements for salvation kind of arbitrary? Is that even should you even be holding yourself to these points of salvation if you're not ever going to live up to it because of some super petty thing you did in the past? Is it so absolute? If you do one little small petty thing, does that cancel out all the good you've ever done in your life? Things like that. So it just puts into question everything, and surely makes a lot of people who are left behind question their own beliefs, specifically the people who thought, oh, I'm gonna go up there, and then they get left on the ground. So yeah, and then he has another line here that says, I guess I'm running in place trying to make it to church. I think this also shows this desire for people who thought they were following the word of God and thought they were living a godly life. And once judgment comes and they are judged poorly, it's that futile desire to try and get back on the right path, to get back good with God. But the judgment has already come. You've already been judged. At this point, in the way that some people like to portray God, if you want to portray him as a jealous God, then you trying to get in his good graces after he's already judged you, then you're not engaging with his word in a genuine way. You are getting there to try and get a specific result, rather than getting there to, be a good person genuinely. So is he really going to take that? Is he going to really accept that? It's a question. So, running in place, trying to make it to church, you're running in place because you're not making any progress. So yeah, it's, I really like that line, running in place, trying to make it to church. I think that's really, really good. And it's, I wrote in my notes. Oh yeah, I already said what I wrote in my notes, so we're good. I have notes for all these things, by the way, if you haven't been keeping up with the other videos. But to continue on here, I do like the little "young nigga get your bag" at the end as well. I think that's a nice little melodic little undertone there. It isn't the strongest thing in the world, because it's literally 12 seconds at the end of the song or something crazy like that. But it's a nice little transition from the high, crazy, stressed out energy of the rest of that track, and leading on to Untitled 2, which is going to be quite a de-escalation in vibe. But let's talk about Untitled 2. I really like the Pimp Pimp Hooray line. It's a refrain that he comes back to throughout the EP here, and I just like it. Just instead of hip hip hooray, it's just Pimp Pimp Hooray. I like that. It's clever. It's just, there's not really much to report on it. I just think it's cute. So I love that. I like the groove of this track. It has a nice vibe to it. It kind of has like a kickback kind of low key energy. The groove of this track is appealing and it goes down easy, despite how spooky it comes off as. It does come off as very spooky, like it's coming through fog or something, or better yet, what I think, less foggy and more like Twilight. I'm slightly inebriated and I'm about to fall asleep type vibes. Like, it kind of feels like that, and it feels like that way in a slightly playful way, not in a sinister, I'm drinking the pain away type vibe. So I really appreciate that. I think that's a good vibe. I love, I was about to say M's flow. Jesus Christ. I'm thinking back to flashbacks of doing Eminem reviews on this channel, which I have done in the past, so you can check those out if you would like. But yeah, I really like Kenny's flow here. Feels like he's, how I put in my notes, it feels like Kenny is floating with his flow, but it feels like his wavering in tone throughout the track makes it seem like he can't actually swim at the beginning. But as the song continues, his flow kind of stabilizes, where it's not like his flow itself was actually shaky, just his tone of voice is shaky. Like at the beginning where he's like, I see jigaboos, I see styrofoam. Like he sounds like his voice is cracking, like he's, pre-adolescent, or I don't know, right in the middle of adolescence. It just sounds very unsure of himself. And then as the song continues, like after the part where he's like, get Top on the phone, and then you hear Top Dog pick up the phone like, what's up, my nigga? Like right after that, then Kendrick kind of like stabilizes into a normal voice. And I like that. I appreciate that. And then after that, he gets even more amped. He's like, Tiffany down to the ultimate life. Oh wait, I think I did the wrong verse. Anyway, it is what it is. But y'all know the part at the end where he's like, shit is amazing, I'm doing my brazen. Like he gets more and more confident as the song goes on. And I just like that progression. I think that's a very interesting way to, experiment with this flow, experiment with this style. I like it a lot. The song itself, it's pretty good, but I just don't know, it just doesn't have that sticking to the ribs type of power to it. It's not really impactful in a way. When it comes on, I like it, but it's never a track that I'm sitting here like, oh man, I could really use a taste of that track. Like it's a good track overall, but a lot of songs on here are gonna have that feeling where it's like, oh, it's good, it's just not the most impactful thing in the world. So yeah, Untitled 2, perfectly decent track. Untitled 3, this for me might be a top 10 Kendrick Lamar track. Now this one, I say that because I love the track. I don't know if it's actually like in the top 5 at all. It might be in the bottom half of that top 10, but that does not detract from how much I really love this song. I actually memorized this song a couple years back. In college, I had a poetry class, and for our presentation, we could do any poet we wanted. And I asked, could we do musicians? And he said yes. So I did my project on Kendrick Lamar, and we had to remember a poem from our poet. So I said, hey, I'm gonna do the entirety of Untitled 2, because he had a limit on how short the poem could be. So people had to remember like a page or two of a poem. But I was like, I'm gonna remember a song, because I fucking listened to this song on repeat for weeks. And then the day I came in, I remembered it all. But the thing about remembering a song is that you remember the cadence of the song. So I couldn't just sit there and recite the words. I had to like do it in his flow. So like at the end, I was like reciting it super fast. And even the teacher was like, he was rapping really fast. And I'm like, yeah, he was. So yeah, I love Untitled 3. I think it's great. This is a song where he's rapping from different perspectives. What did the black man say? What did the Asian say? What did the Indian say? All that stuff. I love how he's rapping from these different perspectives. And I think it's like very interesting. But
two things on that. It's a little bit weird, just for me. I know for myself, I can only speak for my experiences. I can maybe infer a couple things from other people's experiences, but I can only truly speak to my experiences. So when he's sitting here talking from the viewpoint of an Indian, from the viewpoint of an Asian, I'm not saying, oh, cancel Kenny, because that's not the case here at all. But I am a little bit just like, about that, because, I try not to speak from perspectives that aren't mine, because I can't always accurately speak to them or accurately speak about them. So I defer to others for that. But Kenny here taking it upon himself to, if only briefly, speaking from these perspectives. But I love how this track also one other thing I want to say, that I will say how him speaking from the different races, because he is so brief with these perspectives, he boils them down to one stereotype, the Indian preferring land, the Asian person, valuing mind over matter and all that stuff. Like, yes, those are probably somewhat accurate to each of them, but it comes off as a little bit stereotypical, not in a way, once again, I'm not sitting here like, we should cancel Kenny, but it does come off as just a little bit like, but considering how short their contributions to the track are, these differing perspectives, I find it serviceable. I think it's totally fine, and it goes by without really thinking about it too much, because it's not really offensive. It only feels like stereotyping because you're only showing one side of these people, but we have such limited time with them, it makes sense that we only see one side. So can't really call too much foul on that. But I do love how the track, by the end of it crescendos, and it's just, talking about the oppression of the white man once again, or the oppression by white men, I should say, before somebody gets it twisted and misconstrues my words. But yeah, I like how it comes right around there. What does the white man say? What does the white man? Well, he wants a piece of mind. What does the white man want? But that's not what they say. A piece of mind. That's what the white man wanted when I rhyme, telling me that he's telling me just for $10.99. See, I remember the whole song. Let me not get on a whole tangent and just sing the whole thing. But I just like it. I think this song is very well put down, and I chose this for my poetry class because I do think this song feels more like a poem than a lot of Kendrick songs. It just has that structure where you see the rhyme scheme being consistent throughout the entire song. You see the subject matter being consistent throughout the entire song. You see the crescendo at the end, where he's speaking from all these perspectives, and then he ties it together at the end. And that's something I feel like Kendrick has a real knack for, where he puts a bunch of pieces out on the table in the first parts of a song, and then he wraps it up by putting all those pieces together. He does that a lot. He did that in Fear, on Damn. And he just did that with the Heart Part 5, which is, I have been listening to nothing but that song today. So I had to re-listen to Untitled Unmastered to get that fresh in my mind again, because my brain is on 10 right now because we have a new Kendrick Lamar track. But yeah, I love how he's rapping from different perspectives there. And just generally, this track is really groovy. This is a track where I feel this way about this track and a handful of other ones on here, but this one deserved to get mastered. I think this song is just great. I think it's excellent. And yeah, it's just a classic Kendrick song. Like, I can't see too many faults with it, except for the small nitpicks I had there that I talked about earlier. But yeah, this track is more than solid. I love it a lot. Now the next one here, Untitled 4, not much to it, if I'm honest with you. It's not much of a track at all, and we're already halfway through the album, and we haven't even hit 20 minutes in the video, or 20 minutes in the conversation at least. We'll see how long the video is. But Untitled 4, this is the one where it's just the vocals, the background singers just going, "Head is the answer, head is the future," and I love that little groove. Like, whenever I hear that, it just puts me in a small little trance, and I just vibe out to it. And it's a good vibe track, but it is so bare bones. Like, it's literally just that, and then the part at the end where he's like, "And I wanna know," like where the male voice is fading in and out. That it's fine. Like, I like the track for its vibe, but there's not much lyrically to latch onto. There's not much to latch onto. This song is what, maybe like 50 something seconds. It's really, really short. I think it's fine as like an interlude, but for a project that is so short, having one whole track be an interlude feels a little bit like a waste, especially when we get to a later track where they just jumble the interlude with some other stuff. So yeah, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, Untitled 4, not a bad song. There's just not much here to talk about, and so it just makes me not really think about it when it comes to like greatest tracks of all time. Plus, Kendrick isn't even really on that track unless the male voice at the back end is him with a different voice or something. I don't know, it's weird. But yeah, that's Untitled 4. And so let's move on to Untitled 5.
Untitled 5, hopefully you are not able to recognize how long it's been between that last recording and this recording, because I did take a break there right after I said Untitled 5. But anyway, Untitled 5, this is definitely the highlight, or one of the main highlights of this entire project. Most cinematic track on here by far. They're painting a very vivid picture. I love the little chorus here, the "that means the world to me." Like, I love that little, it just sounds so smooth, it just sounds so soothing, and it contrasts heavily with the actual verses here. The verses are very dark, they're full of despair, they're full of violence, and this first verse is a big showcase of that. The first verse has some great visual storytelling, but like I said, it's super dark. Reading from my notes again, I'm not sure what it has to do with the earlier vocal refrain. So I don't know if it's meant to be a juxtaposition or if they just put it all together and said fuck it. But I love the mix of aggression and depression, where the first half of that verse is kind of talking about like, oh, I'm depressed, it's raining, I'm drinking away my problems, hollow tips is all I got. Like, it's that vibe, and then you're pulling up here to take the life of this man. And I don't understand what the context of this is, because this entire project is more or less just some throwaway verses, some throwaway songs. So it's not like there's a larger cohesive narrative that is being told on this project necessarily. But just thinking about it, I kind of feel like it's related to, because the first time I heard some of the words in this first verse was during the Grammys 2016 performance that Kendrick had, and a lot of the tracks on this album are just unreleased verses that he sprinkled throughout his To Pimp a Butterfly era of performances, where he would just do these little random verses and random ad-libs and random songs that people had never heard of, but they weren't released. So this is what that album is. He's releasing those to the public. But during that Grammys performance, it was very, I mean, he sung Blacker the Berry, Sweeter the Juice during that performance. He sung All Right, and it was a very like aggressively like, I'm black and I'm proud, with all my flaws type of performance. So that last section of the performance where he does recite some of the lines from this first verse, it's very much so like, you know, confusion, very much like blind rage, and it seemed like it was a little bit informed by some of the police shootings that were going on at that time. I wanted to say, I almost wrote in my notes Trayvon Martin, but this is what's depressing. I looked it up. Trayvon Martin died in like 2012. So like, that was a long ass time ago. We all think about Trayvon Martin as being a part of the current wave of violence that's going on now. This wave's been going on for fucking 12 years. So it's really sad. Or actually 12 years, it's about 10 years, but still long ass time, way longer than anything should be going on. So yeah, it's a damn shame, but yeah, it's probably a reference to some police shooting that probably happened around the time of the Grammys, or just the general feeling of anxiety around being a black man in America in general. And that lust for murder, that lust for like wanting to take the life of somebody else because they did you wrong. I understand that lust, but I think that is largely desired by the depression in the first half of that verse. So yeah, I think it was good visual storytelling. I love I was gonna take your life until your son jumped into your arms. That's just raw. That's just very real. And it kind of puts a cool twist on it where you think he's gonna catch a body, but then he doesn't, for reasons relating to his conscience kicking in at the last minute. So that verse is cool. Punch, the leader of TDE, literally top dog. Actually, let me make sure I'm not saying that right, or let me make sure I am saying that right, because I understand Punch, TDE. I understand Punch to be the head of the Top Dog Entertainment? Yeah, he's the president of the independent record label Top Dog Entertainment. Yes. Okay, so I was right on that. So yeah, Punch coming in with this verse is a decent verse. I feel like Punch's delivery isn't as raw and emotional as the other two people on here, because we're gonna get to it in a second. But J-Rock is also on this feature, and J-Rock, he has a griminess to him as well, and Kendrick has a rawness to him as well. Punch gives me some Dom Kennedy vibes, and Dom Kennedy's a great rapper. I like plenty of songs from him, but I think of him as being more fun, more swaggerific, more playful, a little bit more Hollywood, and Punch kind of comes off like that. Now, lyrically, his content is still pretty dark, like pretty despair filled, you know, questioning his existence, all that existential type stuff. But just his delivery just sounds so like I'm chilling with it though. Like he seems so casual about it in that Dom Kennedy type of way, in that kickback type of way, where it feels a little bit jarring compared to the other verses on here. Not to a point where I'm like his verse is an odd one out. Not that it's like, oh, it ruins the whole song or anything, but it is just a little bit weird. So I did notice that. But overall, Punch did a pretty good job for someone who doesn't rap entirely professionally. He does a very good job on here, and he holds his own. But I really like the swapping of the verses right after that between J-Rock and Kendrick, just going back and forth with their different voices. J-Rock, I believe, is a little bit older than Kendrick. So to hear him, his delivery is so much like more aggressive, or not even more. Yeah, I will say more aggressive. It's more aggressive. It sounds more adult. It sounds like a grown ass man who has decided he's about to, you know, take action, take violent action or something. He sounds like dedicated. He sounds like he knows what the fuck he's gonna do in this rough world. Where Kendrick, just his delivery, at least in this section, it sounds a lot more innocent, sounds a lot more younger, sounds a lot more uncertain. And it sounds like they might be having a conversation from those two perspectives, where Kenny is the younger person looking up to the older generation, and J-Rock is the older generation who is also misled and is also gonna maybe do something rash. So maybe I'm reading into that slightly a little bit too hard, but just their deliveries there, I think they contrast very, very well, and it makes the ending of the song sound super unique, and I like it a lot. So yeah, Untitled 5, definitely one of the best tracks on the album, if not just objectively the best track. But I like it a lot, and it's very good. There's another one that deserves to be mastered. So yeah, just want to give a shout out to that one. Then we have Untitled 6. Don't have too much to say about this song. Untitled 6 gives me heavy vibes of For Sale. If you remember For Sale off of To Pimp a Butterfly, where it's the whole Lucy diatribe. But it has a similar, like I said it in the last review, that like TV Land ass vibe, where it just has like this show tunes type instrumental. And it's very pleasant. It's very delightful. But it's just so out of place for a rap album. Not out of place in a bad way, out of place in like, oh, that's unique. That's a different thing you've done there. So yeah, I like the vibe. It's just a little bit like, oh, okay, we're doing this now. CeeLo Green fits very well on this track as well. And I will shout out CeeLo Green because he is a member of Goody Mob as well. And I bet Kendrick, being the hip hop, I'm not going to say he's a hip hop historian, but as a hip hop artist, you have to be a fan of hip hop. So I'm sure this is a little bit of a shout out for CeeLo, not just because he was like, yo, I heard him on Fuck You, let's get him on this track. Nah, I'm sure he knows about the ties of Goody Mob and CeeLo Green. So, you know, got to show some respect there. Got to point that out. So yeah, CeeLo Green came through and killed it. He does really good on these types of beats. And you know, I know Earth Gang recently had him rapping. I feel like Kendrick would have had him rapping if he was in a different just musical styling, different musical mood. If this was like a damn feature, I could see him asking CeeLo to rap, and I'm sure CeeLo would be accommodating. But yeah, the vocals come through very, very well from CeeLo on this track nonetheless. And I already said this in the notes. It's a show tunes ass beat. And the track just goes down very easy. Kendrick is his flow is really good on this track. Lyrically, I'm not saying he has like a million punchlines or anything crazy like that, but I do like how easy this track goes down. It's a very like melodic track. I don't know if it's necessarily chill. You know, it is a little bit chill. It's very relaxing. I like this track a lot. It's not my favorite on the album because it is pretty much what it says on the tin. It's just a very light song, but I enjoy it nonetheless, and I think it is a good song to put right after Untitled 5, which is just so heavy, so dark, and very long comparatively. So yeah, shout out to Untitled 6, very good song. Then we have Untitled 7, the very long penultimate track on this album. Now the first part of this got released as a single. The first part of this song, there ain't much to it, but it has a very good bounce. Like, this is the one where it's like levitate, 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 levitate. We don't want problems. We don't want trick. Like, this is the type of thing where I feel like this is just Kendrick vibing. This is just Kendrick chilling. This is Kendrick being like, yo, I'm just gonna make something fun. I'm not trying to be lyrical miracle about it. I'm not trying to like deliver the message of a lifetime with this song. I just want something fun with a good bounce to it where I can just, float on the track. And when I say float on the track, I'm not saying he's like elevating or anything. I'm just implying like he is just riding the wave of the beat in whatever way he catches in that particular vibe at that particular moment, and it's totally fine. This first portion, it got released as a single for a reason. It got very addictive. People were saying levitate, levitate. Like, it's just a catchy ass hook, so I can't really shit on him for it. Now, is this the type of song that I want to listen to on loop, on repeat forever? Not really. I need something a little bit more grandiose, a little bit more lyrical, or just a little bit more, I don't know, less weird, because this song does sound kind of strange. How I wrote in my notes, I said, it sounds like the feeling you get when you stand up too fast or when a limb falls asleep, but somehow more hype than that. Like, it's a pretty hype beat. Like, the drum and the bass underneath it make it sound a lot more hype, but the little wavy, like, it does sound like when you stand up too fast and your mind just goes into space for a second. It sounds like TV static. Or no, it doesn't sound like TV static. It sounds like how TV static feels, if that makes sense at all. And I think it's a unique way to, add into the beat, and it does kind of match the vibe of this whole Untitled Unmastered, that big ass green kind of fuzzy hazy album cover. It matches that tone, but it's not inducive of a song that I'm gonna come back to a million times. So yeah, I think this first part of the song is totally fine. It's just a vibing type, like almost like a freestyling type session type of song. And then we get into the middle portion, which is produced by Young Egypt. Now, I really, really like the beat on this middle portion, where Young Egypt, if you don't know, this is Swiss Beats and Alicia Keys' son. This man, or this young man, produced this song when he was 5 years old. That is buck wild to me still. To think that this man made this beat when he made this beat before I even knew what the fuck I wanted to do in my life. He already produced for Kendrick fucking Lamar. That is fucking crazy. But I like how Kendrick is a little bit more aggressive on here, but the beat isn't necessarily like something super crazy. It's not quite to the Damn level, but it's not quite funky in the way that To Pimp a Butterfly was, and some of the other tracks on this project are. But he's way more aggressive on here. It makes it sound like it makes it sound foreboding, like it sounds threatening in a similar way that The Heart Part 4 sounded threatening, like Jaws coming to get you in the water. This portion of this song kind of has that similar vibe. And I really love this energy. I love when Kendrick is a little bit more threatening sometimes. Not every time. Like, I like it when he did it on Damn, but I'm glad this isn't his signature. But I like when he gets in that pocket, because it feels authentic to him, despite him always, advocating for peace and unity and all that stuff in all his other music. So I think it's just fun to dip into a little bit here. And I will say also, just to comment it on a little bit, a lot of people were thinking that when he said the line, I can't ruin a career that never start, people attributed that line to what's his name? Oh my God, Jay Electronica. Because when the Control verse came out and Jay Electronica was on there, of course, everyone on that song, not just Jay Electronica, but also Big Sean, got overshadowed by Kendrick's contribution to that Control song. And Jay Electronica was talking just a little bit of shit about it in a couple of interviews. And when this line came out, people were like, oh, he's talking about Jay Electronica because his career never started, because he never released a fucking album. And then, of course, years later, here we are. He released that joint album with Jay-Z. And I feel like it came and went. It was a decent album, but for whatever reason,
it didn't stay on my playlist very long, but I know there's a bunch of people who love that album. It got nominated for a Grammy, for Christ's sake, so I can't really talk any shit on it. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out. People did attribute that album to, or that line to, Jay Electronica. I'm not entirely sure if that's the case. I feel like Kendrick has more respect for Jay Electronica than that, but it is what it is there. And then to wrap up this track, we have a very long skit. Like, this song is maybe 8 minutes long with all these different parts. This skit is like a good 3 minutes. Like, it is a big chunk. It might be even more than 3 minutes. And it feels like a genuine backstage recording. It's just Kendrick, and it's just Kendrick chilling with a bunch of homies, and just like, I don't know if he's playing guitar or someone else playing guitar, but he's just like vibing. Like, when you see these breakdowns of like these old school like funk R&B artists, you know, like your Al Greens, your Marvin Gayes, if you ever seen a performance from them where they're just like vibing, where the song is like about to hit crescendo and then they stretch it out for a couple minutes longer and just groove with people and just like vibe with the background dancers and just vibe with the stage, and just everyone's in that same moment. It feels like that. And it's just a continuation of the Head is the Answer song from earlier. I believe that was Untitled 4. Yes, it was Untitled 4. It's a continuation of that, you know, refrain, but he just goes on it. He just continues the vibe. He just continues the tone. And he's just like, come on, come on. Like, it's just such an intoxicating vibe. And this is a big reason why, despite how long this song is, despite how much the skit drags, and honestly, this skit kind of brings the momentum of this project to a pretty big screeching halt, but I welcome it almost every time, because the vibe of this skit is just so like, yeah, I am gonna get with the vibe. I do want to just chill here and just feel in the moment. And I will point out, I believe that the album we're about to get, you know, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, I feel like the vibe of that album is born from this skit. I feel like this skit is kind of the seed that grows out into the sound that I'm expecting from Mr. Morale and Big Steppers, because like I said, Al Green, Marvin Gaye, those are two artists from the 70s. And if you listen to the Heart Part 5, now I had this opinion before the Heart Part 5 came out, so I'm kind of being, you know, I'm being proven right, I feel like. But when the Heart Part 5 came out and I heard that Marvin Gaye sample, I was like, okay, so he's really going to like the 70s funk era once again, in a similar way that he did with To Pimp a Butterfly, but maybe he's doing a little bit more directly here, where he's riffing off of specific songs rather than just generally the sound. So yeah, I already felt like Big Steppers was gonna go in that direction, that like, it feels like it's being performed live, you know, with a lot of live instrumentation and just a lot of like soul and a lot of like, I say funk. I feel like funk is more To Pimp a Butterfly's lane, but this lane feels just slightly separate, where it is still like honestly, it's the same era. It is the same era of the 70s, but funk was just so disco-y. But Marvin Gaye and Al Green, these are like the love songs. These are like the songs that like would play, like when your parents are cleaning, you wake up on a Saturday morning and you hear this shit playing, it's time to clean the house. Like that type of shit, like the love and happiness type of shit. I'm thinking one song that I have in my head, SOS Band, God, what's the name of the song? I just shared it on Twitter. Good God, why am I like this? I have to look up everything. I mean, it's not like I don't have time. This video is going to be very short. SOS Band, Just Be Good to Me. That song is definitely way more disco, but I can hear all the instruments in the background, and I can imagine them reassembling those instruments to make a similar sound for a song on Big Steppers. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out. I really do feel like the sound of Big Steppers is going to be kind of based off of the vibe from this skit. And I think that's really cool, because I really did like the vibe of the skit, and to have that stretched out among an entire album, maybe two. I'm not going to believe it until I see it, but maybe 2 albums. I think that would be so cool, so refreshing, and I love it a lot. So yeah, I really like this skit. It's playful in a way that I find very genuine, very unique. Like, you know, the folks being in, like when Kendrick starts getting to the end of it, he's like, he's young nigga Jason, like, is she gonna get this dick too? Like, all these little fun playful ad-libs, I find them very enjoyable, very unique, and you know, it's just pleasant. I like that track a lot.
And then the end of the project with Blue Faces. This one, I also feel like this song deserved to get mastered. This is such a catchy track. It has such a great groove. This could easily be number one on the pop charts if they really wanted it to be. I really like this song. It just has a good bounce to it. I love the buildup of energy throughout the whole song, where each verse seems like pretty like, all right, another verse, and then we go back to Blue Faces. Like, it's just a really fun back and forth, and then you get to the end, and he's like, then he looked me in my eye, and he asked me why. He said, nigga, you fucked up, and then everything, and then it just goes on. Like, I love that crescendo, because the song has such a good groove that it doesn't necessarily feel like it's building up, and then when that crescendo hits, you think back to the rest of the song and you're like, oh shit, this was all building up to like this crescendo of this message. So I really like that. I think it's just so clever. I think this narratively, this song kind of gives me vibes of How Much a Dollar Costs from To Pimp a Butterfly once again. It gives me vibes of that once again, but just in a much more playful environment. And it's just a good song, man. It just goes down super easy. It goes down easier than even Untitled 6, like I said earlier. Untitled 8 is one of the best tracks on this project, and I love it a lot. It's very, very good. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that one. But yeah, overall, Untitled Unmastered. There's a lot of enjoyable songs on here. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this project is bad. I think just compared to, like, when I first heard this, right when it came out, it was a year after To Pimp a Butterfly. I was still riding high on the hype of that album. I've already said it's my favorite album of all time, most likely, if not just my favorite rap album of all time. But I was riding high on the hype of that. So when I got this, I ate it up. I loved it to death. And I thought it was, on the level of anything else that he had put out. So I just loved it. But coming back to it, where I have to look at it more on its own as its own project rather than a piece of the To Pimp a Butterfly era or just that album. Looking at it on its own, it is understandably lackluster. And I say understandably because it's in the title. This isn't a finished product. This isn't done with the most pristine polish, with the most it's not meant to all work cohesively as one continuous thing. These are just a couple songs. These are just a couple B-sides. And it sounds like it. It sounds like it. And I don't want to say that as if it's a major detraction, but it does sound like it's unfinished. And despite these songs being good nonetheless, you can only imagine how great they would be if they were a part of a cohesive whole, if they had a little bit more production done in the background, just had a little bit more done to them. They could be hits in their own right. And that did not happen. I don't really mourn the loss of that too much because these songs sound decent as they are. And plus, Kendrick is going to deliver so much great music in the future. We got big steppers coming up, so I'm excited. But that's what I think about Untitled and Unmastered. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. To go through all the housekeeping stuff here, if you want to see the other reviews that I've done for Kendrick Lamar and other musicians and other music videos or music related content I've done on this channel, you can go ahead and check out the playlist that I have linked in the description. I also have linked in the description the podcast that I do, the Players Club podcast. That comes out just about every week. Mostly it's about video games, but if you like hearing me talk, want to hear me talk more, listen to that podcast. That's a good place for it. After that, I am also on Twitter. I think that's one of the first links in there. You can follow me on Twitter at EJSpun61. I have been tweeting a lot about Kendrick because he got the Heart Part 5 and I'm losing my goddamn mind. But it's okay. I will be all right. I will live. And then other than that, I'm trying to think if there's any other thing that I need to talk about, need to comment on. I am not trying to stretch for time because all these videos have been very long and it's actually kind of refreshing to have a video here that I could talk about under an hour because I haven't had that since Overly Dedicated. All these other videos have been long as fuck, but it's totally cool. I enjoy doing these things. I'm not even gonna front. So yeah, I talked about the podcast, talked about the playlist. I will be writing my Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers review that will go on VGU.tv once it does release. I'm not going to review it as soon as it comes out because I need to sit with it because that's how art works. But once I am ready to talk about it, I will be writing it on VGU.tv. So if you want to catch up on my written work there, I have a link down there as well where you can see, not just my posts about the podcast, but my review of Everything Everywhere All at Once. Late last year, I posted a review for Donda as well. The original Donda, not Donda 2, because Donda 2 doesn't exist yet until it's on a wider release to me. But yeah, I've written a bunch of stuff in the past, so if you want to catch up on my writing, you can do so there. And in that link, you also see my Mr. Morale review once it is live. And yeah, that's all I got for you today. Hopefully you enjoyed whatever game I'm playing. I was planning on playing a different game. I might still play that game, but I kind of want to play 2 other games. I don't know. We'll see what I choose to play, but whatever I end up playing for gameplay for this video, hopefully it was entertaining. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you enjoyed my voice here. And thank you for rocking with me. And as I always say, keep it real, keep it trill. And I'll see you later, big steppers. Woo! Okay, I'm gonna chill. But I'm excited as fuck. Holy hell.